All right, so are you looking for a job? If so, you are not alone. Get this, almost 11 million Americans are unemployed, which means competition today is tight. So we have put together a job panel with experts to help you take a fresh look at your job search strategy and tell you which mistakes you need to be avoiding.
It's true, so let's meet them. Susan K. Worley owns 2 businesses that specialize in development and employee engagement. She's also an executive coach and author of 5 empowerment books. Carol Lewis-Williams is a CEO of an image consulting business. For decades, she worked in HR and employment development, and she's also a trainer in making good impressions and dressing for success. And finally, our boss, Steve Wexler. He's the executive vice president here at Journal Broadcast Group, and he's going to tell you what we did so perfectly to get our jobs.
Oh. You do it every day.
Every day.
Every day is a gift.
I was going to say, who's a better employee, me or Tiffany?
Definitely you,
Can I get
Molly.
back to you guys?
Yeah, I know who it is. It's Molly.
Do I have a chance to consider that
I'm constantly getting emails from Wex.
You're in trouble. We're so excited to have all of you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
having us.
There are a lot of people who don't have a job in today's age, and I wonder, in your opinion, with whatever your specialty is, what do you see as being the #1 mistake or a mistake people are making as it relates to finding a job, or if they're out of work, they've been fired, they've been laid off, or they just want to make a career change? What's the mistake people are making?
I think the first thing is they have to get their attitude straight. And if they're thinking it's going to be hard to get a job, and they're thinking about other people that don't have a job, they're walking into a situation with a negative attitude, and it's going to be hard to, be attractive to anybody who would even consider them. So they have to get that all straight in their attitude in their head first.
Attitude in life, right? Just in general.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Big mistake people make?
I think it's the preparation and the actual pre-planning that goes into finding a job. I think people don't really realize that it takes a job to get a job, and they're not willing to put forth that effort in terms of time and commitment. And it shows up in an interview. That's what I've
I
experienced.
think that's a great point. I was just going to say it takes a job to get a job, because a lot of people quit their jobs because they want to find their dream job or they want to go after something. And the best advice I've ever received is don't quit a job until it's dumb that you don't.
Yeah.
I heard that from a motivational speaker who was trying to build his business, and he said, when you're doing that, don't leave that money maker until it's stupid that you don't. In other words, that you've got enough money coming in.
And one of the mistakes I think that I see sometimes is people will prepare and take it very seriously, but they tend to forget sort of who their audience is. And they'll spend a lot of time talking about themselves because they think, it's my chance to impress you. The problem is I'm the one shopping, okay? So you need to help satisfy what my needs are as an employer.
True.
So make sure you understand that the person you're speaking with is looking for something, has a need. Your job is to help satisfy that need, as opposed to just talking about themselves.
Do your homework, because nowadays with all the technology available, really there's no excuse not to really understand that business that you're going to be interviewing with, finding out who they are, finding out their goals. You can even get on databases like Reference USA and find out what their sales are and how many locations, and if you go in there prepared and talk about what's in it for you and how I can add value to you, your chance of getting a job is so much greater.
That's great. And I think in the interview, like you said, that's a great, because this society, especially with some younger people, is very me focused. What am I going to get from the company? What am I going to bring? But I like that you said, remember to turn it back around about what can you give to the company. How about an interview? What's your go-to question? What's the one thing you think people should prepare?
What you got? What's your go-to question?
Oh my gosh. I hate to give that answer because now
Anyone who interviews with Journal.
they go, I know what he's gonna ask. I've got a couple. My view is I am more interested in the cultural fit than I am with whether you know how to do the job, because my assumption is if you're interviewing with me, somebody has already pre-qualified you on the skills. Do you know how to host a TV show? I'm not really interested in finding that out. And so I tend to ask questions that are more about sort of who you are, how you're wired, how you respond to good times, bad times. I'll ask questions about who's been influential in your life. And sometimes that takes people, they're like, well, what does that have to do with my job? And my view is it has everything to do with who you are. And in really successful organizations, you're not just looking for people who are good at their job, you're looking for people who are going to be terrific employees and are going to support the culture of your organization.
I'm glad you brought that up, because somebody a long time ago told me you can teach skills, which is exactly what you just said, but you cannot teach attitude
Right.
or aptitude.
Right.
And you know, I want to get to you guys about that same question, but before we do, because you brought something up, I want to know, is there a character trait, and it probably depends on the job, but is there one personality trait or a couple, like I think about our technical producer we could not live without, I don't think he's in the studio, but he's a can-do guy. So you ask him to, he can always find a way to make it work. It's yes, yes, yes.
That's important.
Is there a character trait or personality trait that you find very likable in a job candidate?
I'll just give you two quick ones. One is a sense of ethics, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you have to be a perfect citizen, but I'll ask some questions about, you know, situations you may have been in where something didn't strike you as quite right and didn't smell right, didn't pass the smell test, because I'm looking to see if you have some sense of basic right and wrong, because that'll go to integrity, which ultimately, beyond skills, is going to be very important for any employer, because I want people who may not be perfect, but who will do the right thing and will be candid and honest. The other is curiosity. I will admit that my bias towards people who ask questions, who wonder why things work the way they do, who ask good questions of the employer.
That's why you like us.
That's why I love you guys.
I remember our interview and you telling me your entire story of how you got to where you were. But how much does that play in too? You know, your career path and how hard you work to get to where you are and how much you want to see that in someone you're interviewing. Because I think that that's easy to think about when you're interviewing someone, that you see that hard work, that work ethic in somebody. Because we all know, I mean, people who are successful, you know how hard each one of you worked and how you're willing to do so many different jobs to get there. And how much does that matter to you when you're looking at a candidate?
Well, I think everything you said is excellent, and I would add to that somebody who's focused and somebody who has a big picture mentality. Yes, you have to have integrity. I think that's a baseline. And yes, you have to have a positive attitude, but someone who knows how to focus on what the goals are and have that big picture mentality, so they understand that they're not working in a silo just in their job or just in their department, but they have this ability to bring everybody together for the good of the all. And now that companies have really right-sized or lean-sized, whatever you want to call it, you know, they're looking for people who are going to add value and a return on investment to the bottom line. So when you can show, I know how to focus on the goal, I know how to bring people together to work together for that end in mind, you know, you're really going to be of value.
What about how to dress for a job interview? You know, there are a lot of casual Fridays at a lot of different offices. We have that here at Journal. You're somebody who consults on the image
development. Yes, absolutely. I think the way one presents themselves in that initial 3 minutes or 7 seconds, whatever you know term you choose to go by, it makes a big difference, because instantly you can form an opinion. And it can be the best candidate you know, in the world, but you can't get past that door. We had an earlier conversation just a moment ago, and that's really unfortunate because you have got to fit into the culture of that company. And if your image does not match that particular culture, then you're going to have problems getting your foot in the door.
So how about if you're interviewing for a place that isn't very dressy? Do you always wear a suit and tie? Or do you match the culture that you are going to be working in? Because my rule of thumb that I've always given as suggestion is you always go above on that first interview. You always dress better.
One step
for the
above.
job you want.
You do have to take the culture, you know, into consideration, because if it's a casual culture, say Harley Davidson, you know, and they're casual, where they wear jeans and maybe a jacket, chaps, they're leathers. And you go in there in a suit and tie, you're going to create a feeling of separation, and you want to feel like you can connect with them.
And
it's called artifactual communication. People will look at your artifactual communication and they'll ask, do you match the culture? But yes, you do want to dress one step above the job that you're interviewing for.
Real quick, a couple last quick questions, and answer them as briefly as you can. Will you Google or look people up on social media, Wex, after they interview with you or before you have that discussion?
I might. I mean, it's not great data, but yeah, I might be curious about you know, whether there's press clippings or other data. It's not a big determinant for me. It's not a make or break.
How do you feel about a thank you note after an interview? And should it be in writing? Is email okay?
I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I think the thank you note is still very important, and I prefer a handwritten note because I think it shows that you took an extra 30 seconds to say, I enjoyed our conversation, and say something specific about the discussion, as opposed to a generic Thank you for your time. It tells the interviewer that you were really paying attention.
And do you like persistence after the interview? Do you like people who follow up with phone calls?
Stalking is not good.
Stalking, not good. Okay.
Friending you immediately on Facebook.
Don't
Not
drive by
good.
my house. Don't
Would
drive
rather
by
not
my
see you at my driveway, right?
You guys, your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I do think persistence in an appropriate way, you know, absolutely a handwritten letter. And then if you can think of something creative, again, that ties in, maybe that person showed up in the newspaper and you saw that you read the article and you say, hey, I saw your article, great article on the company or on you, something that's very specific, but yeah, not over the top stalking.
And I'm going to agree with my cohorts here in terms of sending that thank you letter and do it as promptly as possible, along with the fact that if you run out of time and can't do a handwritten letter, send an email, do something, a card, something to say, I so appreciated the opportunity to interview with you.
So something's better than nothing.
Well, and to
Absolutely.
that point, we've both had notes from Wex, handwritten notes when we renew a contract or on our anniversary, I think.
Wait, we renewed your contract?
Not mine.
Wow.
That's good stuff.
Kind of soft.
Keeping us humble, right?
That's very funny.
Thanks so much, you guys. It was awesome to have you. Thank you so much. Love it.